infection.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's just a matter of, they're not looking what they're doing. So, anyway, to
There's
the
a
show.
lot of goop in the air.
Yes, indeed.
But we're going to clear up stuff about relationships in our
Yes,
conversation.
indeed. As we do so easily, so every week.
Oh, yes, easily and effortlessly.
Yes,
Give us your mess. We'll help you clean it up.
absolutely.
This is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. We're back for more.
I know. We just always want more. We need more. It's so exciting. It's such a fun conversation to have always with you. So today, it really does happen a lot. Why do couples stop talking to each other? Because I think in my personal life and my professional life and my reading, it's for often really different reasons. And we women think you're doing it for the same reason. And I bet you men think we're doing it for the same reason. And everybody's confused. And so then
Yes.
we'll talk about the reasons that we have had happen in our lives. Either we stopped talking or the other person did, and then maybe some things to do about it, because it's such a frustrating for women. My understanding for why we stop talking is we're mad at somebody. That's our punishment, because we like feeling connected. We like talking to you. We like it when you talk to us. And so if we're like, I'm not going to talk to him, we think it's a big punishment. Now, I don't know if it always affects you that way, but we're convinced because it feels like a punishment to us.
That's
So
the
how
thing.
does that seem on the Y chromosome side of the screen, Mr. Selby?
Well, let me share a few things from my perspective.
Thank you so much.
Because the thing about this is what you said at the beginning is so true, is that the lacking or dropping of communication from each gender's position in the relationship isn't the same thing for each partner. And there's also difference there's also variance on both sides as well. But in this context about where women think they're going to punish the guy by not talking to him, for some guys, it's a relief, not a punishment, just to be clear. I knew you're thinking that already. I know. Because the thing is that oftentimes what we want most as men is peace and quiet. And that's just as a quality we value. And it's like we love conversation, but oftentimes just the silence is bliss as well. And so women tend to be more verbal communicators than men do, as a generality, as you were saying. And so we don't necessarily see it as being her being mad at us or having some reason to withhold from us. We just think she's giving us a break.
I know. It's like phew. Because the thing that I am going to say out loud that drives women crazy is when we say, well, what are you thinking about? And the answer that you do sometimes give that is the truth, that it's nothing. And we're
Nothing,
like,
right? Yep.
he's lying. How could he think about nothing when the minimum I think about is 12 things at the same time?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's so many memes about this stuff. There's the meme about if you want to think how if you want to wonder how a woman thinks, just imagine a browser with 152 tabs open at the same time.
Yes.
You know.
I do that on my computer and in my head.
Yeah, I don't do it as many times, but I do quite a few on my computer because I have a lot of things running at once too. But I don't look at them all at the same time. So it's more like this is the one I'm focusing on. Oh, that's right, I've got that one open as well. But it's kind of remembering that it's there, not having to be consciously aware of it. The other meme I remember seeing was it wasn't about the stop talking, but the reason why it would get to that point is the one where the couple sitting on the couch, woman is sitting at one end, looking very upset, with her head on her hand. What's the guy's on the other end of the couch? And she's like, we haven't spoken for hours. And it's like, what's going on? It feels like he's upset with me. Something I didn't do. What did I do this morning? I was doing this and that. And what was I thinking? I don't know what was going on. Everything else. And on the other end of the couch, the thought bubble above the guy's head is, I can't figure out why the motorcycle wouldn't start this morning. And it's that sort of thing is that, I mean, this is another piece of the puzzle, which is about the inability to understand what each other's thinking and also not communicating to find out. We don't ask questions of like, what's going on? Yeah. Because the thing is, yes, you ask the man what he's thinking, oftentimes it is going to be nothing. But oftentimes what he's making his what make him appear to be upset may be something totally unrelated to what you think it might be. But women
Most
don't
of
ask
the
questions.
time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I found when I started learning to ask what I guess, because I'd say, let me tell you what I think. Because when I do it in that way, they'd laugh. Okay.
Right.
And they go, no. You know, a lot of times women think, I know he's thinking about that woman that we saw at the restaurant. And he's thinking, when was the last time I changed the oil in the car? I mean, it
Yeah,
couldn't
exactly.
be more different.
Right.
So the baseline that often, because there's other reasons, but we could talk about this baseline is we women make up shit. We make up so much stuff like it is the truth. We could pass a lie detector about what you're doing or not doing and why you're doing or not doing. Oh my gosh. And we can have an entire scenario with no evidence.
Right.
Because when women talk to me, I'll listen to the whole blah, 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 blah. And I'm so understanding it because I've certainly done it. And I go, really? And what makes you think that? What did he say or what did he do? Oh, it's what he didn't say. That's usually the answer. You're guilty for not talking.
Exactly. So first of all, thank you for saying it, because I couldn't have said it without being killed. But secondly, that doesn't let men off the hook either, because the thing is, saying that it's not the rule. Yes, it happens quite frequently.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it doesn't give men to say, we can get away with stuff now because she's going to make up stuff about me anyway, because that's what men do sometimes.
Yes.
So understandably, it's about integrity on both sides of the conversation.
Yeah.
But yes, it is good to verify what you're thinking by checking out the facts with your partner on both sides of the conversation.
Yeah. Is there any basis of reality in anything I'm saying? Is there a tiny little smidgen? Maybe. Yeah. Because when you, and I'm going to quote Alison Armstrong again, because it makes so much sense, that when we women think, well, I would never do that. My friends would never do that. And I go, but he's not a woman with more muscles and hair. Truly. Right. And conversely, the men like, what? Why would she think I'm thinking that? Because a man would never, because this is not a man with less muscles and hair. If we go, oh, different.
Yes.
Not good or bad either, just different. So the other thing that I love, that I quote constantly, that Alison Armstrong says is, well, if you stop a moment and say, what if they weren't just misbehaving? What if there's a good reason, totally different than anything you would do or think or act, but still a good reason, that it can take your 0 to 60 upset back down to maybe an 8 3/4, where you could have maybe a logical thought about it.
Yeah.
And we women, I'm going to say it out loud too, because you wouldn't be able to say this, we get in our feelings pretty quickly.
Oh,
especially if we're in the Myers-Briggs, if we're an F like me. It's our go-to place. I'm constantly monitoring, how am I feeling? How do I feel about that person? How do I think they're feeling about me? And I used to get my feelings hurt all the time. I'll give myself grace, about 50% of the time was justified and 50% not at all. So I'd run around with my feelings hurt, thinking somebody said something that was mean or that was upsetting, or because they didn't like me, and living hours in this horrible feeling. And I've learned to go, are you having a problem with me? Did I do something? I mean, okay, tell me if I did, because especially if it's another woman, she's not always saying if she's upset with me.
Right.
So we do it just as badly to each other as we do it to you poor fellas. I mean, we're equal opportunity people about that, sadly. We're just awful about that.
And that's the thing, is that I mean, we have our own stories too, but I'm just going to say, for what women go through a lot of times, is that 50-50 thing is a lot of times for women, the upset they're feeling is actually self-inflicted. It's not based upon anything outside of themselves. And that's the challenge, is that women have a really great gift of intuition, which is much more powerful than men have. However, it's got to be developed and honed to be accurate. It's not automatically perfect. So when women go, I have a feeling he's cheating on me, it's like, have you done any research? Do you have any sense of reality about that? Or are you just making stuff up?
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, is that there's a distinct opportunity for course correction in this conversation. For men, just to give that side of the conversation, as we said earlier, we tend to think of nothing quite often. It's kind of more a resting state, or it's one thing at a time. And so to juggle anything that complicated is just simply not our natural focus. And so when a woman's thinking something, it's almost like, I don't know, be careful I say this, because for a man to be cheating on a woman, he's got to be really, really good to hide it from her, because her radar is pretty strong. You said women have good intuition when it's developed, but oftentimes the signals are so strong, it's almost like women can't ignore it. So that can be definitely the communication standards on both sides. I know, the theme is doing about why they stop talking, but the differences in communication is the key as well, because a lot of times the reasons why couples do stop talking is because they haven't had an equal conversation in years. So, it's a key part of the conversation is how do we maintain, and it's part of how to change it always, how do you maintain communication, understanding that you're communicating from different places, and sometimes the words you say aren't being matched by the way being heard on the other side.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, so true. And when you say out loud, generally, men use less words to get to the point. We women tend to include many more details. We want to talk about it from a bunch of different angles. So if you're not reciprocating and we don't know, it's not that you aren't interested. It's not that you don't want to talk about it with us. It's not your natural inclination. And yes, these are all generalities. Yes, there's men that can talk a blue streak, especially if you talk about something they're interested in.
Of course,
like
yes.
If they're really into fishing or really into cars, they could talk for a long time. And generally, I'm really going on a limb now, the feeling, this is how I'm feeling about my work, or this is how I'm feeling about my friend that hurt my feelings, or oh my God, this is how I'm feeling about you and we have to talk. That's enough to send you to the hills.
Indeed.
It makes you men be, I think, and I like it now that I figured it out, you're even more careful about, I'm going to really think about what I'm going to say. I'm going to make sure it's really what I mean. They're like, he's going to make up stuff by doing that. I said, that's a bad guy and you don't want to be with him. And if you figure that out, see, this is how we make up shit.
Right.
And there are guys like that, but generally a good guy really wants to tell you his truth. He really wants to think about your question. So I'm going to quote Alison Armstrong again in her lovely Invisible Duct Tape, because we say, oh, I was thinking about blah, blah, blah. And what do you think about that? So you think, okay, I'm going to think about that because I haven't thought about that before, but I really want to give her the true answer. How do I think about this? So then what happens in us when we were uneducated women, we go, well, I don't think he understood the question because he didn't answer right away. So I'm going to answer the question again, but I'm going to make it different because obviously I didn't do a good job the first time. And so now you're thinking, and then you go, oh, wait, stop. There's a new question, I have to pay attention to the new question.
Yeah.
There's new information. Okay, so I have to I'm stopping, which is effort, because I really don't like doing two things at once. And I'm going to think about this new thing. Okay, now I'm gearing up. I'm thinking about the new thing. And now we're like, oh my God, why isn't he? So now I have to ask a third friggin' time. And it's driving both people crazy.
Exactly. That's so well put out.
Only because I've done it a lot in my earlier days before I knew to stop doing this. So you women ask a question and then go with your invisible duct tape and wait, because when you learn to watch, you'll see there's wheels turning.
You'll see the cogs whirring. Yeah,
He's really thinking. But you have to pay attention. He's not daydreaming because they were like, oh, he's just daydreaming and he really doesn't care. He obviously doesn't care much about me, that he doesn't want to answer my question. So now I'm going to get even madder. I mean, it's
right.
horrible what we do to ourselves. And then we're going to happily spray it all over you. And how awful, doesn't that just make both people want to back up a lot and stop talking?
Absolutely. And just
You cringe when I did that because you're like, it's happened to me.
I
I'm
know
having
it's
PTSD about it now.
feelings familiar, definitely. So yes, well put. And I love Allison's way of putting it to it so clear that invisible duct tape is a great little reminder.
So what would you prefer, Mr. Barry? How can women do this better?
Well, let me illustrate the point another way too, because referencing somebody else I love listening to, Mark Gunga, he talks about the Tale of Two Brains, one of his series on YouTube. You can find it years ago. But he talks about how men,
say his name again.
Mark Gunga, Gungor.
Yes,
he's a preacher back east, and he has this. It's a lecture he gave to his congregation that was called the Tale of Two Brains, and he had on stage these two chronology skulls, these white porcelain heads on top of like little 3-foot columns. And he would go back and forth between the two of them. And one thing he said that was so key was the way he illustrated, it's not obviously the way it really is, but the way he illustrated how women's brains and men's brains are wired differently or connected differently. So and the thing is, one reason women get upset with men is they ask a man a question and the men just give back a very simple answer. And she's expecting a more complicated one. And there's a reason for this, because the way men think is that, and the way he describes it as sort of a visual representation, is that each male's brains are basically lots of little boxes all floating in space, separate from each other, not connected, not touching, all isolated. And inside each box is a discrete thought or memory. So when you ask him a question, he will go through his filing system, find that one box, open the box, take out the thought, give you the response to that one question with one thought, put it back in the box, put the box away, and be done.
And think about that timing. That's some time, right?
Yeah. He's got to find the file. It's got to find it. Yeah, it's going to, women's brains are generally wired differently. The way he describes women's brains is it's all connected by one long continuous thread. So asking a woman the same question, she will go find that particular answer, but everything connected to it has to come too. So, and it's also very accessible because it's everything basically. So when a woman answers the same question, she answers the question the same way the man does, plus all the bonus material. What the temperature was, who she was with, what she was wearing, how she felt that morning, what the weather was like, what she had for breakfast. All the other stuff that goes with it is part of the answer. So for many women, when talking to men, they're very unsatisfied with the answer the man gives because his answer is very succinct. And when a man hears the answer from a woman, he's overwhelmed by it because it's not what he's referencing. He wants some simple answer, And so the thing about it is the communication styles, as John Gray talks, Mars and Venus, men and women do think differently, therefore they communicate differently. If we don't understand the differences, we make massive assumptions about each other, which makes it harder to communicate. So we don't talk as much. So it's vivid to do that. So the way out of this, as you were asking, how it is for the men's side of things, we do tend to feel overwhelmed when we ask women questions and want to get an answer. So it's oftentimes better to say, I just need this piece of information. Yes. None of the decorating stuff, none of the flower stuff, none of the other stuff. Just one simple answer, like what color to wear, sort of thing. It could be that.
Yeah.
Because asking things about what you're going to wear is a dangerous question for a man to ask a woman if he wants a simple answer, because she's going to give him the whole story, all illustrations, decorating, everything else too, which makes this piece of the conversation challenging because, again, we communicate differently back and forward. And being on the receiving end doesn't work for either one if you don't understand who you're talking to. So the way to quick resolve this, so to speak, is when you're talking to somebody of the opposite sex, recognize that how they listen is different to the way you listen. So how you communicate should ideally be, and this is actually a skill for everybody when you want to with anybody else, is you want to communicate to the person, talk to the person in the way that you know they want to hear it. Not necessarily what they want to hear, but how they want to hear it. So that way, when you communicate, it lands for them, which can be challenging because for men to tell a woman the details with everything around it is not easy to do because we don't have it. We don't have referenced easily. That's the thing. By the way, I just said about that took longer time. If you want us to answer you back with all the stuff you want to hear, we're going to open 17 boxes. That takes a lot of work.
So that also tells us we need to be patient even
Yes,
more.
right.
So one of the things I just love is listening to you talk, because I know, and people have watched these, know that how much work you've done to get to the place where in this video you could say, you know, when women want to give you all those accessories, they're bonuses. I'm like, what an enlightened, generous thing to say, instead of why? Because all men, until they
Yeah.
know this, go, what? Really?
Hey,
Get
and
to
just
the point. Get to the
just
point.
to be
What's the
clear,
point? What's the point? What's the point?
right?
Right?
But just to be clear, though, it was a long time till I got that
Oh,
one.
oh,
I was
it
not.
is. It is,
Yeah,
because it's not your go-to. It's
right.
not how you
Not
normally think. It's not how your life runs just fine getting to the point,
yep.
especially with other men. One of the tiny exhibits I give is, you know, when women are texting back and forth, guaranteed, unless this other woman's way in her masculine, if one of you says thank you, the other one will always say you're welcome. We think it's just polite. Doesn't everybody do that? No. You could say thank you to a man, and he thinks he wouldn't even think about it. But if I asked him, he'd go, I'm supposed to say you're welcome? Okay.
Yeah,
Because if he ever said you're welcome to another guy, he'd go, all right. They don't need it like
right.
we do. It doesn't finish the package. It doesn't put a bow on the package. It doesn't help us feel complete if we don't have that. And it's not a need. So when you go to needs, okay, hun, these are the things I need. And it can't be unlimited. You can't have an unlimited amount of needs with a man. So if you really need your welcome, there's a couple other things that we're going to talk about that you might want that are more important. And we're going to let the you're welcome thing go, because lots of women come to me with that as a big problem. And I go, I get it. Oh my gosh, I totally get it. But let's look at the priorities here. And then they'll go, oh, yeah, look at the other things I'm getting that they didn't even appreciate, or the things I could get if I asked differently. And then I can let the you're welcome thing go. So we women need to sort out our priorities of how we feel cared about you, how we feel important to you. Because I think often when we stop talking, your brief answers make us feel dismissed. They make us feel uncared about. They make us feel you really aren't paying attention. You really don't want to talk to us. You're hiding something. There's another thing we can make up.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're too brief, but we haven't said we need more, we will stop talking to you. We will get huffy. I said, I look like one of those cartoon characters with one of those big storm clouds follow me around everywhere I went, in the house and outside. It was just major hurricane force storms. And my girlfriend's all, oh, you must be really upset. And my husband would like, you were upset?
That happens
I
too.
noticed you were quiet, but and the other thing you guys think is, if you had something to say, you would just say it.
Yes.
Oh, is that a big thing of this?
So true. It's so true.
Oh,
Yeah. And that's the other part too, again, because the emotional piece is, it's like when a woman walks around and is upset and feeling it, other women can sense it. But that's not our tuning language. We won't tune into that ourselves as men. So we are going to be saying, I wonder why you were quiet. That is not unusual. It's not saying it's anything wrong with him. It's just natural.
yes.
So it does take sensitivity. And yes, for me, that's one of the things I've been working on over the years, because this is my work, to be more aware of what other people are feeling, both men and women.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we generally do, especially as men. So that piece of the puzzle, again, not just the words we say, but the feelings that we have as well, don't match and mesh with each other very well easily either. I mean, it's amazing sometimes we can even get together, frankly.
Isn't it? I end a lot of my talks that way. Aren't we amazing? We finally get together. But then the other really quirky catch-22 thing is, so then, a guy hears this and he goes, okay, I'll ask her, how are you doing? Or is there something wrong? And she'll go, nope, I'm fine.
Yeah. That word is dangerous.
It's the worst word. I'm sure in the history of the world, there have been times when a woman has said fine and she was neutral. But I'm telling you, the most of the time, it means I am so upset about something and I'm not going to tell you because if you loved me enough, you'd already have it figured out and you already know what you did to me. You already knew what upset me, and
Right.
you're just ignoring it and not doing anything about it, which is 98.9% untrue.
Yeah. It's
It is. It's so unfair for both people. I am
well,
so
yeah.
not finding fault with women because the attention you're craving that you're feeling neglected about, you're not going to get by doing it this way. Trust me on that.
It is something that, again, we have this. I mean, to put it succinctly or simply put, really,
You
is
mean
we
going to
make.
get to the point? After all Christine's words, I just love it that you're going to get to the point.
Yeah, well, you did set me up for that one, didn't I? I set myself up for it.
It's perfect.
It really comes down to the simple thing is that we really make massive assumptions about each other. And it is the biggest stumbling block we make. You know, that term assume is not a healthy term for many, many reasons. And the problem is between genders, we've never were told it's that we shouldn't, or we don't know, because the thing is we think we know and we don't. And so having conversation with our partner of the opposite sex, especially, is so important to have it as almost like an innocent level. Like, so I really don't know much about you. Please tell me. Like, you, and be honest, be willing to say, let me share with you. It's like have the wherewithal to not buy into the fact that he should be a mind reader. Therefore, if he gets upset, you know, if he doesn't understand why I'm upset, he's not worth it, which is what some women think.
Mm-hmm.
It's that understanding that you go recognize that he doesn't understand at this point, or doesn't recognize, or is not in the zone to focus. So let me break it down so he understands and he can do something about it. Because the other part is for us men in relationship. If we knew what was wrong, we'd happily fix it because we are fixers. That's naturally our skill set.
Uh-huh.
So that's the thing. If we don't, if you non-verbally tell us we should know what you're thinking without knowing what it is you're thinking and feeling, so then we should go fix it. It's like shooting in the dark. We have no clue.
No.
So no wonder women get upset with men for reasons that men don't understand.
A lot.
Yeah.
And the thing too, that after all the men I've talked to in my work and even in my personal life, I am constantly reassured how important pleasing us is, how important making us happy with you, happy with who you are, happy with how you're treating us, happy with how you're behaving. So you are ready, willing, and able, if it's in your ability at all. If we said, you know, especially if you do it this way, I really like that you do this, and would you do this in addition? Or you could even say, you know, when you do this, it's not good for me. Would you do this instead? And if you say it in that way, you now get to go, oh, I could do that. Yeah, that would make you happy. That's worth it to me to make you happy. And that's not a big, huge thing for me to change. And I didn't even know to do that. And you're so damn grateful because you're not going to keep doing this thing that you just would normally do and making us mad. Because initially we get annoyed and irritated and thinking that you don't really care and you're not really noticing. And we drop these stupid subtle hints that you're never going to hear or see. That when we finally say, you know, I'd really like this, you'll go, okay, really, I could do that. You want me to take out the trash when I go to work every day? I could do that. You want me to come home and kiss you madly when I walk in the door first thing? I could do that. I mean, I've mentioned a number of times how our agreement was, it was a minimum of 10 minutes. I needed 10 minutes when my husband walked in the door for me to decompress.
Hmm.
I'd like more, and sometimes I needed more, but most of the time I just needed the 10 minutes. He could pee. That was one thing, he could pee. But then he needed to come sit on the bar stool and stare in my face, and I'd set a timer. I was fine with that. I just need to connect with you. Maybe I just need to hear about your day. Often I just need to give you the highlights of my day, and then go to your office, your home office, and sit in there for an hour and a half. I don't care, because then I know we'll talk at dinner. I
Yeah.
needed for my well-being and for me not to be edgy with him, to have this connecty time. Because in the beginning, he would just go up to his home office, and
Hmm.
I was like, wait, I'm feeling really, I mean, he kissed me a little bit. I'm like, you don't like me? You don't want to talk to me? You haven't seen me all day. I have stuff to talk to you about. I mean,
Right.
I could just make up so much shit. It's just sad what we do. So when I finally said, "Oh, I think I should ask for this," he was like, "Sure, fine, I can do that." And then there'd be times he'd go, I could do more. But
Hmm.
until I asked, he was oblivious, and I was starting to get irritated, which is not good for either person, because and I always say, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to talking to you at dinner. And he'd go, "You're welcome," because he did something good that made me happy.
The biggest piece of that is because, unfortunately, many women think that men are mind readers. And the challenge is, when we do things for our partners without knowing what it is, we are shooting in the dark, we are guessing. So when she goes, that isn't going to work for me, I want something different, that's helping us dramatically, because then we
Yes,
get brownie points, we're doing the right thing.
yes,
Because when you tell us what you want and we get to do that and you like it, that's a win-win for all of us, for us especially. We just like, go, we're doing the right thing, and it doesn't require us to guess and fiddle around and try different things, see why it works. Like, you let us know, and it's so much easier. The thing is that it's, I mean, it's a reward system as well. But the other part is that we really want, as you said, want to please. She goes by.
I said, "She hears Barry's voice. She likes you, Barry.
There's Gigi.
Gigi
Um,
likes Barry."
so, from each other point, the and it's funny. It's like women may feel like it's so much work, and they got, it's like there's something very mundane about having to tell their man what they want. It, frankly, as I said, it's like, helps us do what we know will please you, so it makes us better partners. So it
Yeah.
doesn't make a difference to do that. So it's vital in a way to be that simplistic, because it makes a difference and it makes it work. We, as partners, are oftentimes, well, again, I mean, I may stand from the crowd because of the work I've done, but most men, that we get to this point where we get comfortable in a relationship, we get lazy in a relationship, we get basically not tuned out, but it's like we don't talk because it's almost like we don't talk because there's nothing wrong.
There's
Wiring
not a
up.
problem. Why do you need to talk?
Yeah. So for us men, when it's silence, it means everything's okay. For women,
Mhm.
usually that's the opposite.
So true.
That silence has weight to it when a woman's not saying anything, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah. So there's another huge difference. And another difference is men generally are much more concerned about the return on the investment of their energy, their time,
Hmm.
their money, their energy.
Yeah.
So you want to know, I'm doing good. I'm making a difference when I'm using my time and my energy for you. And women generally are a little more like buckshot. We're kind of spreading our energy around. We're not always paying attention. Are we filling ourselves back up again? Which is why we get so drained and so overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
So if we say, I appreciate that you do this thing, and I would be even happier. So you're going to get even a more bonus for your energy use if you did this as well, or instead, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I am on it in a second. Let me recalibrate, because I'm going to get more back for this. You're going to be
Yeah.
happier with me. You're going to stop getting mad at me. You're going to maybe want to have sex with me because of it." That you help him do the best thing possible that makes you happy. And the most amazing thing that I explain to women, and they go, until they do it, and then they go,
Yeah.
when you do it this way, when you explain it this very specific, you get specific about what is it you really need and want, completely different, a little different, some adjust, and you explain it to him in this, I really need this, it would really make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Can I tell you, every time, it's not double back, it's quadruple back. You will get more, because they're like, why do I have to do it first? Well, because you're talking to me. And as we just discussed, I can't mental telepathy to him and tell him what he should be doing differently. So I need you to tell him differently using these very specific words. But watch, because what'll happen is he'll do something that you like even more, which makes you even happier, which he's like, good on me. And then he's like, I want to do more of that. What else would you like? Which makes you even happier. And then the women come back going, he can't do enough. I go, oh, I know. Because if you keep listening to me, that he really wants to please you. He wants you to be appreciative of him. He wants you to be proud of him. He wants you going, good job.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to want to keep doing more of those things. But you first have to tell. And that's
the thing is that we don't take it personally if you are willing to tell us, especially if we are making blind, clumsy actions to try and make you happy and we're not getting the results we want. By telling us what you want that'll make you happy, it absolutely is in our wheelhouse then, because it's like, oh, I know how to do that part, so I can do that. And then of course we'll do more of it. Yeah, I mean it's I hate to say it, but in some ways it's like men are like kids. It's like we do need to be instructions and know how to do things ideally, but the truth is when we do, our partner is going to be so much happier. So it's a win-win for both sides. It's so simple to do. And to speak back to the topic about why couples stop talking, which is kind of what we started from, but we've gone a lot deeper than that, is the recognition is that really we are learning ways to remember how to communicate that we haven't been doing. And again, the assumptions of mind reading and the silence, they're traps we fall into. And why couples stop talking is because I believe the partners don't continue or don't choose to keep putting effort in to learn to make the relationship better. Because when you make the relationship better, there is more communication. So why couples stop talking is because they're basically given up. And so what we're talking about here and what we've been explaining for the last part of the show are ways to stop, to redirect the energy back into loving, connected, intimate communion.
Yes. And so I started out talking about a lot of the reasons women stop talking, that we don't feel appreciated or acknowledged. And the men who tell me that they stop talking is, you feel unappreciated or underappreciated and so criticized. Because what we women do, instead of saying what we'd like, is we think we're being really helpful. And we say, well, Sally's husband brings her a card every day. And you're like, and I hear the criticism, but I'm not sure what it is you want me to do, because you do not hear that as, please bring me a card. Right. You would be happy if I said, please bring me, I'd really like a card. Would you bring me a card every day or once a week? I'd really like that. You go, well, maybe I could do that. I had a gift buying service for men for a while, and I would send out cards for them. And boy, they got lots more attention. So when we are indirect, which is really normal for women when they don't understand this technique, and this feels very critical to men, you will go into reverse, beep, 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 you're down the block. Because who wants to come and talk to a woman that the only thing you hear out of their mouth is all the things you're doing wrong, first, which is bad, and two, what the hell am I supposed to do about it?
Yeah.
I don't hear a solution. I want the fix. Remember, you like the fix. You want to, you're happy to hear the fix. You're happy to give a fix. And we women need to say, oh, well, what would I like instead? This is what I'd like. Please do this for me. And the majority of men will do that. So if your man's backing up, you might want to look at your critical meter. And if your
Yeah.
woman's backing up, it might be that maybe you could take the love language quiz and you could figure out why she's not talking, because you're not giving her the things that she wants because she hasn't opened her mouth and told you about it.
Right.
So we've been talking in this segment about why people stop talking to each other, why they stop communicating, because they're still generally in the same physical sphere. But when this gets worse, they're going to physically start backing up. So maybe next week we could talk about what causes the extra riff, why people go off and have affairs, why they turn into roommates in the house, because this is often the seed that will blossom into worse, where you're now not even connecting. You don't even want to be in the same room with each other. I mean, at least you're still being courteous, usually, if you're not really talking. But the courtesy goes out the window, I think, when we physically pull back.
Well, that's the thing I mean, communication is key for everything, definitely. And having that ability to understand each other and communicate to each other and be willing to change how you interact with each other is such a key piece. But yes, if that's failing, then the withdrawal of each other's energies gets more likely, and that's when things fall apart. So yeah, next week we'll definitely talk about that. It's definitely a topic. But finish up this one again. As one of those things about, like, saying when you ask your partner to have a card every week or every day, sometimes what men do thinks that if I do a big enough gesture, I can put my feet up again.
Yes.
So what we do, yes, you know this one. So what we do is we'll do something really dramatic and extravagant to make her happy, so we can then take the next 6 months off.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way we think. And as a mistake, John Gray talks about this as one of the things that said, and I use this as an illustration, that men think, for Valentine's Day, giving a woman, 2 dozen roses is absolutely the biggest gift. And it's like, great, I'm done. The way he describes it, which I love the way he puts it, is very simple in a way, but it's perfect, is the fact that every time we give something to a woman, it's a point. And the thing is that if it's that point, then there's definitely a rating system, but it's not scale, it's duration, meaning that if we want to really impress her, rather than giving her 2 dozen roses on one day, you give her 1 rose every day for 24 days, we get 24 points. So the lesson for men, the secret for men to keep the woman engaged and interacting and communicating, is if a woman asks for something, is to make sure it is something you can do consistently. If you just do it the once, think you're done with it, that's an errant approach.
Yes.
Because it is about, in a way, the points game. Men like scoring points. That's one of the things that we like doing. But if we understand that if we give a woman the thing we're going to give it all at once, we spread it over so many days, we get more points for that, then it becomes, again, a game we can play that helps us win, and that partner loves it as well. So it is worth the investment of time to plan a way of doing things that's maybe the same amount of effort, but divided up in a more effective way, because then both partners win.
And it's so true, because we give 1 point for everything. You generally can give a whole bunch of points for one thing. So the other way, I loved how he explained it, is you guys are like the all-you-can-eat buffet. You go and you get filled up and you have this variety. And it's what you do with us. You love spending time with us. You get really full. We made love and we had these great conversations and we had really good food together. And then you're like, okay, I need to go take care of my life. I'm going to go off and do my business and hang out with my kids and do my sports, play golf with my friends. And we're like the strolling buffet. We want a little now and we want a little more later in the afternoon. And like, me, I want my 3 texts a day, a little more later and a little the next day. And if you go, oh, he left because he got full. And when he gets hungry, he'll come back. So how am I going to fill up my buffet? So if I say, while you're off doing your thing, and could you send me a text, please? Because it will make me feel connected. You don't need to show up. You can do your business stuff, but it just lets me know I was thinking about you. So I can still have my strolling buffet. And that's how you can keep the connection and keep earning the points, because it's so helpful.
Well, especially with the fact, understanding we function differently. We said, I mean, if anybody's watching this video since the beginning or listened to this talk from the beginning, you can clearly get that we know we're different. The men and women are very different. So understanding these simple little tools that you can understand that when you lean into the other person's way of being, So you think, okay, they value communication over periods of time regularly. That's not what I normally do, but for her, I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
That creates more reward, creates more benefit, more connection. And so vice versa, with it, when her knowing that for him, he needs to take time out to other things, then she knows not to bother him during that time too. She'll let him do his own thing. He'll come back at dinner time, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So having that recognition of the differences, it's probably one of the biggest keys to having healthy relationships.
It's that generally nobody's misbehaving. We're just different. And when you don't know about the differences, you completely misunderstand the other person's has good intentions.
Yeah.
Both people have very good intentions. I want to talk to you all the time because I like you and I feel connected to you. And I really like sharing. And you would go, oh, it's a lot of words and a lot of time. And I'm a little exhausted and she's kind of needy. So if you know that and you can have that conversation about here's my tolerance level and I can do this. And then you say, okay, I really am not good at texting, but I am much better talking on the phone, or I really like waiting till I'm in person. And how do you regulate that so that both people, I mean, I'm always using the good enough. You want better.
Right.
You want better than good enough. But if you can just get to good enough, especially if I can get couples to that when they're like, I'm not even talking to them anymore. Can we get to the good enough where you're at least going, all right, that was a nice thing. And yeah, that made me feel good. And that wasn't too hard. And she said, thank you about that. Oh, that is the first step to not splitting up.
Yeah.
Because that's what's happening. You're going to split up or be miserable together. Yuck.
That we'll talk about next week.
Yes. Yes, because that's the ultimate separation, right, of physicality. But when we're talking about the not talking is the emotional separation. That's what we talked about this week. You're emotionally feeling disconnected. And so we've given you lots of hints on how to get emotionally reconnected before you head for the physical disconnection, because that's even harder. But we will tackle it next week, right?
Oh, yes, indeed, we will. Yes.
So if any of you out there have done any of these things that Barry and I talked about that we certainly did and have really learned not to do anymore, we would be so happy to teach you, because can't you hear the benefit for both sides? If you even still care a little bit, or you remember that you cared about that person at some point and you'd like to work out how to care again, we could help you.
Absolutely, we can.
So the way to reach me is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can have a complimentary conversation with me if you click on what's holding you back from love. You can also go on to my social media. So on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest, it's The Perfect Catch. And then on Instagram, it's Coach Christine Baumgartner. And on YouTube, it's at Coach Christine Baumgartner. That woman that married Kevin Costner shows up ahead of me if I don't put in these extra things. So that's how it had to work. At least nobody hacked my stuff like poor Barry.
Only
so
on Instagram.
Tell people how to get a hold of you, please.
So how they can get in touch with me. Also, I have a website and social media. So my website, which is my name, which is barryselby.com. It'll pop up on the screen in a moment. And on my site, in fact, my site is actually at the moment in the process of being rebuilt. I've got somebody working on my website finally, because I've been hating the way it redesigned last time. So it may be pretty imperfect by the time somebody's watching this, but probably not for another few weeks. Getting prettified and done right, hopefully. I haven't seen the results yet. So my website currently, if you go in the existing state, on the front page has a couple of links on the screen. The top one that says get started is where you can sign up for a mini session with me. So you can invest in that and have a half-an-hour coaching session to see what it's like to work with me, and we get to test things out and see who you are and see if you want to work together. At the bottom of the home screen is a link that it's going to be a box where you can opt into my email list and become a follower of my work. And also you get replays of this video or episodes rather sent to you every week. Also, my website, which should be reappearing soon, because again, this stuff is missing still, is my book, my online courses, some other videos, and my coaching opportunities as well. On social media, you can find me on all the platforms, and Instagram is the one that's off, which is the one that got changed because it got hacked, is the real Barry Selby, but everything else is Barry Selby. So on YouTube, especially, where this video and every other video I've done is on YouTube, it's Barry Selby. And so on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Clubhouse, and on LinkedIn, I think it was everything, is my name. So Barry Selby. So again, Instagram's the animal that's different, which is the real Barry Selby. Everywhere else is Barry Selby. So you can find me everywhere.
And you can chat with us, and we would love for you to send us messages through here if you enjoyed what we said, if you have questions or comments or suggestions for future programs. And we're here every Thursday live at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And we'd be so grateful if you shared these podcasts with your single friends or couple friends that are having some challenges in their relationship, because we hear back that people are really getting some help, and we're having lots and lots of people viewing. So we must be helping, and we would just so excited if you would share us out there, because our job is to help people start understanding each other and communicating more smoothly.
Exactly. So look forward
And
to
so
having you.
you've heard a sneak preview of what our subject is next week. So we'll hope you'll come back.
Yes, look forward to seeing you then.